that engaging with art can teach you that is useful for leaders. Through the research, I developed a process of how to work with art in leadership development, and I used many different media. So I used poetry, I used photography, drawing, and today we're going to work with dance, or movement. That's the less scary word for the same thing. When I work with leaders, one thing that I like a very particular starting point. I like to start from unsolvable problems. So theory is nice, but you learn some new theory, and then there's the whole work of how to apply it in your everyday work context, which is not a small problem. One thing that I really like is to start from something that appears to be a very important yet unsolvable problem in your particular company. In my research, I had 60 managers, and the first question I asked all of them, well, the first question I asked them was, "What's your name?" But the second question I asked of them was, "Tell me about a problem in your organization that affects bottom line, affects working climate, something else you really care about, that you tried to solve for many years and you just can't do it." And to my delight, everybody answered. So when I started describing these kind of problems, everybody has them. So it might be problems like, sometimes there is something that seems simple. You think you know what to do. Everybody agrees this is the thing to do, yet it doesn't happen. How many knows this kind of situations? Yeah. Then there's the other variation, which is sometimes you seem to have analyzed the whole system. You understand your organization, you understand the environment it's operating in, you understand the people, what are their qualifications. You seem to understand the whole thing, and when you think about the entire system, you say, this thing is just a condition I have to accept. It sucks, it makes the organization, it hurts the organization in very severe ways, but there is no solution to this thing. I've thought it through, cannot be solved. How many know situations like this? When we think about leadership in general, or about the specific problems related to leadership, our thinking is grounded in sensory experience. And so, let me give you some examples from the research. In the research, one of the things I did with some of the managers was that we looked very specifically at what are the sensory grounds, the sensory template, you can say, on which you base your understanding of a problematic situation. So there was one woman who had the problem that that was actually this thing. They would get together in her management team. They would agree on something. She would think that everybody was, yes, this is what we're going to do. They went out to their separate departments, and she would look at what they did, and they would do something completely different than what they agreed on. And so she said, my problem is, how do we get commitment to the decisions we are making in the management team? Now, then we explored what was the sensory template upon which this understanding was based. The way we did it was I gave her a camera and say, take pictures of stuff that feels the same way as your problem. She took pictures of trains moving in same or opposite directions, and generally it became clear that her sensory ground or template on which she based the understanding of a problem was whether or not coordinated movement toward the same destination. So that's what she was aiming for, and what she saw was movement toward different destinations. So this is like a sensory template. There was another one who, her problem was she had a customer service department, and the people in the customer service department was complaining a lot and nagging, and there was a general uncomfortable atmosphere. They were very harsh in the way they spoke to each other. And of course, that spilled over to the way they spoke to the customers. Not a good thing for an organization. So she thought, and she felt like these people seemed to be complaining a lot and not understanding that their work is really valuable. It seems they have low self-esteem. So she said, the problem here is how do I raise the self-esteem of everybody here? We explored the physical sensory template, and she says it's like Sisyphus. I'm pushing a boulder up a hill, and every time I turn my back, it rolls back down. You see how this is like a physical template on which the understanding of the problem is grounded. Yeah, makes sense? Now, what I found was often the sense that a problem is unsolvable comes not just from the reality of the situation, but comes so much from which sensory template you're basing your understanding on. And there are two ways that you can work with this sensory template that makes seemingly unsolvable problems transform into simple solvable problems. So, so I'll give you an example of that. The first employee, she took the first participant, she took all these pictures of trains, but then she also took a picture on a scarf left on a bench. And she was very curious about that, because that had no movement in it, there was no direction, the scarf was just lying there. We spoke about it, and what emerged was a different sensory template on which she could ground her understanding of the problem. So she said, I asked her, well, why did you take this? She said, well, it looks a little bit lonely. Somebody just left it there and it's got no contact to anybody else. So all of a sudden she's evoking a new sensory template which has to do with contact, not contact. When she started using this template to think about the situation, she said, oh my God, the problem isn't that we are not committed to the decisions. The problem is we have no relationship to each other. And she knew from working with her employees, one of the first things she always did with new employees was using different tools to make them create relations to each other. Because she said, if there are no relations, work is not gonna happen. It's not gonna be smooth. All of a sudden, she said, all of those tools I have for creating relationships in my employees, between my employees, I can use them in the management team. Suddenly, it transformed from a problem where she had no clue what to do to a problem that seemed fairly simple and solvable to her. The other example, the one with the Sisyphus pushing the boulder up, she had a very slight change actually in the sensory template she used. She began talking about it. She said it feels not just like pushing a boulder up and then it rolls down. It feels like, actually it feels like riding your bike while you have the brakes on. It feels like there's friction in the system. That simple word became pivotal in what happened because she started to look for the friction. Where's the friction? And what she discovered was the manager in the customer service department did not allow the employees to make decisions that were fully qualified to make. He was micromanaging. And that was what created the whole uncomfortable, complaining atmosphere. And she said, this is so cool. Instead of having a problem of how to raise everybody's self-worth, which I have no idea how to do and been unsuccessful so far, and it's a daunting task, I just have to go to the manager and say, you can't do that. You have to make sure that they are qualified to do their work and then let them do their work. This is so much simpler. So you see, does it make sense, this thing that if you change the sensory templates that in which you ground your understanding of the problem, something that seemed unsolvable might become solvable. So when you are thinking about leadership, often you will ground your understanding of leadership in general in, well, let me hear, what kind of physical sensory templates can you perceive in your understanding of leadership?
Running a marathon with the fishnet over my shoulder with my employees in the fishnet. So
now we're talking. Yes, this is actually very, thanks for
running,
admitting it.
running and then dragging the employees.
That's a very good one. It's very common, I tell you. Yes. You?
Yeah, I'm in a very successful situation. I've never been there, but that would be that I played out the advertising spot, TV spot, every day in my life. You know, where you have this good-looking young man, and then okay, so rats follow him, but you don't know why, because he sprayed himself with that kind of very good smell. I was walking, and everybody just want to follow me because I'm doing the right thing.
So you're a little more subtle than it's like you use chemical. What we're going to do today is that we're going to use dance in order to expand the templates. Simply just get new sensory templates that you can use for thinking about leading and following. And for this, dance is excellent. And we have two different kinds of dance. One is contact improvisation and one is tango. And the way the contact is achieved in these two dances, so that leadership and followership can happen, they achieve that contact, that communication, in almost opposite ways. So therefore, it's very interesting to see those two dances together. So what we're going to do before lunch is that we're going to take the tables out to the side. You're going to go into two circles with roughly 15 people in each, and then you're going to see we're going to dance for you, and you're just going to watch. And what I'd like you to notice is watch and see if you can, through empathy, through really being observant, can you see what physically are done in order to achieve followership, leadership in those two dances. And you will see both. We do 2 rounds. And then after lunch, we're going to do some. Don't be scared when you see the dance. We're not going to ask you to do exactly what we're doing. After lunch, we're going to do something very simple. Some very simple dance exercises that are used when you teach tango and contact improvisation. Because there are sensations that you can see from watching it, but there's also sensations you won't get until you are trying it yourself. So, sounds good?